We start this part in November of age 766 as an important meeting is happening on Earth within the conference rooms of Capsule Corp. On one side, we have an ex-tyrant of a king and his right-hand woman, while on the other side we have the defenders of Earth. As of now, they are trying to come up with a plan to take down the king's son, Cooler, as he is a threat to the now trade, tourism, and culture-based empire of King Cold. If Cooler were to succeed, it would likely cause the newly reformed Cold Empire to either shatter or be taken over and forced to join Cooler's forces. As of right now, Cooler's empire and army is much like Frieza's used to be. Everyone only serves him out of fear and his army is generally weak but grand in number. On the other hand, however, Cold's army is quite powerful and even grander in number, thanks to the many capsules supplied from Capsule Corp along with the high morale of his armies. When Cooler hears how his father's empire is being run now and what his father is doing, the thought would sicken him. He would see his father becoming good as a disgrace to their family and believe himself to be the rightful ruler for the entire empire. A major thing they come up with during this meeting as part of the plan had to do with planets like Namek and Yardrat. While hesitant at first since it's King Cold, these planets would join the Empire after Goku reassures them it's safe to. Though this isn't all that caused him to join, the Namekians have been hearing stories about Frieza's father and his new empire that was formed on trust and collaboration instead of on fear and forced cooperation. Basically, the tyrant's father is fixing the mistakes of his son, and now trying to fix the mistakes of his other son. They'd support that to some degree. Though it's unlikely that the Namekians would allow King Cold to use the Dragon Balls, though King Cold would likely not have even requested that aid from them. He would have noted it as being far too soon for them to have that level of trust, which to him is understandable. He basically only just started his new empire just shy of 2 years ago, and it will take a while to make amends for everything he and his sons caused in the past. But this is a step in the right direction. As for the people of Yardrat, they would agree with the plan, but just request that Cold doesn't send masses upon masses of troops to the planet to be trained. They request only his finest be sent when they wish to develop their mind and spirit. However, they would potentially refuse training his men until Cold himself trains with them. Their main reason for this is that if Cold is going to put his men through the Yardratian training, he should see for himself what they will be going through first. So, since Cold will be busy with the battle against Cooler, Yardrat does join the Empire, but doesn't start training his men right away. However, he will be back after Cooler is taken care of since he will have a little more time. Anyway, this would lead to special divisions being made in King Cold's army, with him having techniques and races from other planets. So, after King Cold's army and empire is expanded with more of these men, they go back to the drawing boards of how they will take down Cooler. Now that King Cold is more about cooperating with the people in his empire, he would make this meeting an empire-wide broadcast for everyone to have their say in it. Eventually, he would come up with the plan of attacking Cooler head-on at his base planet, since there isn't really a better option than dealing with the problem at the source. Also, they're confident that they can get through any henchmen protecting the planet since the intel King Cold has said Cooler's army is fairly weak, just big in number. The Namekian divisions would be some of the finest divisions in Cold's numbers. Once the invasion of Cooler's base planet starts, they would easily be able to dispatch groups upon groups of the Cooler force. While Cold's army is dispatching groups of Cooler's armies, the Dragon Team would be doing the same. Think of it like how it was during Resurrection F, with each of the Earthlings taking on many people at once. Though, eventually, after many of them are taken out, Cooler's armored squadron would show up to take on the Dragon Team. So, while Cold's army is taking on the regular henchmen, the Dragon Team handles the armored squadron quite easily. Since Banyu is King Cold's right-hand woman and was strong enough to be in the Ginyu Force, she would be able to take them on. So it would mainly be Banyu and Piccolo taking on Salza, Gohan and Krillin taking on Dor, and Tien and Yamcha would fight Maze. All of Cooler's armored squadron would easily be taken care of quickly, which leaves only the main fight left. Now they all head to where Cooler is, with King Cold himself suggesting he take Cooler on first, as it's his responsibility. Their fight starts off with Cold still in his second form and with Cooler in his fourth form, which, of course, King Cold would be falling behind in just his second form, so he would transform to his third form and continue the fight. However, I do believe once Cooler taps into the full power of his fourth form, Cold would be pushed to transform to his final form as well. At this point though, when Cold does tap into his full power, he would have the advantage over Cooler. We've never seen Cold in these forms, so it's all speculation, but a lot of the power scaling I've seen put second form Cold slightly above what full power Frieza's power on Namek was, so his fourth form would be quite powerful in comparison to Cooler in his fourth form. This leads Cooler to reveal the ace up his sleeve, his fifth form which even King Cold didn't know about. So, unfortunately for Cold, this is bad news for him. With all the business of maintaining his newly reformed empire, he hasn't had time to train. So, King Cold starts to get beaten down a lot here, which leads to Vegeta stepping in. Even though he likes seeing a member of Frieza's family getting beaten down, Cooler is the threat here, not Cold. Originally, Goku was going to step in, but Vegeta would stop him, as he wishes to get revenge against a member of Frieza's family. Goku already stole the enjoyment of defeating one of the tyrants, that being Frieza, so he isn't going to let him do it again. Though as he steps in to aid Cold, he's quickly beaten into the ground. He isn't a Super Saiyan yet, so his base form basically changes nothing in this fight. This anger from getting beaten down from a member of Frieza's family while trying to help another member of Frieza's family, combined with both Kakarot and the mysterious warrior stealing the catharsis of ending Frieza away from him, would add fuel to his growing rage. Also, adding to this anger, would have been a low-class warrior like Kakarot being the one to become the Super Saiyan legend instead of him, the Prince of the Saiyans. This becomes enough of a catalyst for something to bubble up within the Prince. After enough of his anger builds and finally boils over, we see lightning start to strike in the background and around Vegeta. The ground then starts to shake beneath Vegeta's feet, eventually cracking and crumbling with the cracked ground and floating up into the air around him. As lightning continues to flash in the sky, Vegeta's hair starts to flash between its usual black to a bright yellow. Cooler, of course, has no idea what's going on and just watches in awe like Frieza did when Goku transformed, though everyone else, even King Cold, figured out what was happening to Vegeta. As the lightning strikes get closer and closer, Vegeta's anger fully bubbles over, with his hair now fully being yellow. He has become the Super Saiyan, to which he turns his piercing gaze back towards Cooler. As Vegeta starts his fight with Cooler, the Earthlings are just left to watch. Since King Cold is in bad shape now, Krillin brings him a Sensu Beam, which, after taking it, the beam kind of blows the king away like the castles did earlier. Though that's something to keep in mind for later, as now isn't the time to worry about it. King Cold jumps back into the fight against Cooler. With Cooler now facing both his father and his Super Saiyan Vegeta, he stands no chance against the two warriors. Normally at this point Cooler would try to use his Supernova like he did in his movie to take out his enemy, since he would survive the planet exploding. But he can't get a moment in to even charge the attack. After Cooler is basically beaten to a pulp for a while, he falls out of his fifth form, as he no longer has the strength to be able to maintain it. King Cold would try to offer his son mercy here like Trunks did to him, saying he became much better off for it. Not only did he start becoming a better person, but his empire is also doing much better than it ever has because of the way it is managed now. Though, Cooler would refuse this offer of peace, saying King Cold has grown soft and is a disgrace to their family. With Cooler refusing the offer, this is where Vegeta gets the moment he's been waiting his whole life for. He walks up to Cooler like he did to Frieza in the Resurrection F movie, but this time he finishes him off instead of letting Cooler blow up the planet beneath them. Shortly after Vegeta kills Cooler, he falls out of the Super Saiyan form and passes out from the strain it had on his body. So, the Earthlings take Vegeta back to King Cold's ship since they just went with Cold on his ship to get there and place him in a healing pod. Now that the Dragon Team helped King Cold take down Cooler, he keeps his word and pledges to lend his aid to the Earthlings when he can. He will do this by sending things like simple supplies and training aids to sendings of his squads, elites, or even come there himself along with Banyu to assist them with any threat they have. Mainly, he keeps his word about coming to help with the android threat, which is only slightly less than a year away now. With Cooler defeated now, his previous empire is on the edge of completely shattering. They would only have two options, one being to just leave the empire, as they would have no leader now, which basically means they lose the benefits of being in the empire. The other option would be to join King Cold's empire, which could be likely after they hear about how Cold's empire is run now. They either lose the protection of the empire, or risk being taken over or wiped out by another alien race in the future, or they could join King Cold's reformed empire, which just would give them more freedom than they used to have under Cooler, and they still get the protection, supplies, and support of the empire. After arriving back on Earth, before King Cold and Banyu leave, Goku would urge them to train, so that King Cold could become a stronger leader, and that Banyu could become a better right-hand woman. He isn't only urging King Cold to train because of the android threat, but also so King Cold could fight anyone that tried to challenge his position, fair and square with his own power. Also, knowing Goku, he would also be urging them to train so he could have other strong training partners in the future. These reasons would make sense to the monarch, so he agrees to train to help the Earthlings with the upcoming android threat. Cold will decide to take up the offer the Yardratians gave him earlier, as he wants it to be available for his men eventually, though not only does he want to train with the Yardratians, but he also has another goal in mind to receive from his training as well. The form he's seen Cooler use against both him and Vegeta would pique his interest, which he thinks if his son could achieve it, why couldn't he do it as well? So, besides just training with the Yardratians, he makes obtaining the fifth form his goal as well. So, he doesn't stay on Earth to train, instead he obviously has his men set the course for Yardrat. Right before he leaves, he promises to come back to be there with them on the day the androids are supposed to appear. As for his empire, he figured while he trains on Yardrat, he can have some of his men that he trusts handle his business for him. While he can't physically go and help him, he will still provide his input when they need him to, though he might also just do brief broadcasts to the planets that require his assistance when he is able to. When he lands on Yarghet, Kivaru is happy to see Cold manage to make time to come and train with him. He was mainly happy because he thinks his training could further help the Monarch down his path of becoming good. Also, Cold would convince Pibara to train Banyu as well. He's still technically following the condition that he must go through the training before they train his men. He's just having Pibara train Banyu at the same time. As for the heroes of Earth, after King Cold and Banyu do leave the planet, they go back to their training for the android threat. This is only about 6 months away.